Complacency. It's the byproduct of lack of awareness. Thank you for joining us for another rare conversation. Today's conversation is going to be around the topic of why is self-awareness important? Hey, thank you for joining us live here. I am Tony Jalen, joined by Daniil Jalen. If you're joining us in the YouTubeverse, thank you for joining. If you're joining us from Facebook Live or Twitterverse, thank you for joining. This is a topic that I feel is very important. It's called self-awareness. And I heard that quote just recently in terms of a lack of awareness leads to complacency. And if you look at self-awareness, it's the ability to monitor one's own emotions and reactions. And actually, I believe it's one of the leadership traits that can determine your success in leadership and life. So I'm going to share a story with you before we jump into this. This happened now, 7 years ago. And I had to hit a plateau in my leadership role. And it seemed like no matter how hard I worked or books I read, I couldn't get past a particular goal. And I was stressed because my future success and my team's success was on my ability, dependent on my ability to lead. So that's when I figured I should hire a business coach. A coach, of course, will teach me how to lead others better, and then I will get better. And guess what I did? I told them, hey, I want you to push me. Tell me what books to read. Tell me what seminars to attend. I will do what it takes. And that's when she told me this. If you want to become a better leader, it isn't just about leading others. It's about leading yourself. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist, said, your visions will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. So what's your thoughts on self-awareness, Danielle, and why is it so important? And we're going to be talking about some ideas and some thoughts in regards to how to improve self-awareness, which ultimately improves relationships, your leadership, and your results.
Well, I think based on what you shared about, it's not about leading others, it's about leading yourself. I think that when you really take a look at that and becoming self-aware is what are you doing that's stopping your growth? Really understanding like the things that you need to grow or the things that you're maybe getting frustrated at others about are the things that maybe you need to take care of within yourself. And by being able to develop the self-awareness around those situations, I think is key to continuing to grow yourself.
Yeah, to be honest, like this process of going inside can be tough. I mean, there's numerous times that I struggle with this still today. And I learned like real fast, we all have things that we know that we are pretending not to know. And it's like when you become more self-aware and conscious, you have more control. On the same hand, what you are not aware of is what you cannot control all the time. So one of the tips they say in order to be better at self-awareness is knowing your emotional triggers. What are some ways that you've learned to identify an emotional trigger versus just letting it pass by?
I think for me, with emotional triggers, it just comes down to not giving myself the right time frame of working on things. And so I become stressed. And so it's now become more aware, like having to set a timeline for things to get done so that I don't feel like I'm rushing through and stressing out about different things. Taking that deep breath and just looking at like what's important right at this second and not necessarily like the 50 million other things that are going on.
Well, I think too is identifying what those triggers are and actually taking a step back. Warren Buffett, what he does, he actually records important decisions and reflects upon them later in the journal. He does a lot of journaling, Warren Buffett does. I think this is also important because what it does it makes you take an inventory of the conversations you've had throughout the day. I think it's easy not to, and think about like, wait, why did I get a little bit excited for that one conversation? Why did I respond the way that I did? Like they say, hey, if you ask for patience, you get things that test your patience. If you ask to be more kind, you get opportunities to test your kindness. So there's a book called Emotional Intelligence 2.0. It really does a good job of helping us becoming more self-aware as it regards to the emotional triggers. I think another place that when I was sitting down with my coach, they really helped me through this, is being aware of your strengths and weaknesses. Self-aware leaders know their strengths and weaknesses. They don't have to be a know-it-all or be-all. So when you look at your strengths and weaknesses, so to speak, has this helped you in being more self-aware?
Understanding where I'm stronger or weaker helps me look to where I can ask for help instead of getting frustrated. And so it just really takes time to understand, like, if I'm getting frustrated over something, is it something that have a strength in and can figure it out? Or is it something where I'm holding myself back from asking for that help as needed? And letting ego get in the way of asking for that help.
Why do you think it's a challenge then to ask for help? Because that's also, you got to be vulnerable to do that, right? In order to ask for help, because that's not easy as well. Because then now you're saying, hey, you know what? Okay, I recognize this area where I've got to grow. And now by asking for help, I feel almost as like opening that Pandora's box of things that I may have not wanted to address. And now because I'm asking for that help, I'm now addressing it publicly. So what's your thoughts on that?
About asking for help?
Yeah.
I think, well, that's where you have to decide, like, is this really something worth being frustrated about, or is it something that you truly want to learn from and grow and move to that next level? And if you're not going to be self-aware to understand that, then that's probably an area where you need to continue working on as well.
Yeah, but that's so uncomfortable though. Like once you actually recognize the areas, it's like jumping on a scale.
Yeah.
If you haven't been jumping on a scale, well, like we don't jump on a scale because we know we probably haven't maybe done the exercise or ate the right diet or the right things, drink enough water. And we walk by that scale and that little scale voice goes, come by me right now. You know the truth. Yet we sometimes walk away from it. And so that's feedback. And that's going back to the point that feedback is an absolute gift. It allows you to feed yourself forward to move that next step. Another place in terms of self-awareness is admitting mistakes. There's a phrase that says, do you want to win the person or do you want to win the battle? And I know this may not sound like the politically correct thing to actually do, to actually admit one's own mistakes. Can you share an instance when it was tough for you recently to admit a mistake that you made, that you didn't really want to admit the mistake, yet you understood, like, if I don't admit it, then it's going to create angst. So I better admit it to be able to move on from it.
I don't make mistakes, so I don't really know what you're asking me to share.
I'm just thinking anything.
I know. That's why I'm asking. I'm like, there must be an instance that you're thinking of that you want me
I
to.
am not thinking about that
admit a
at all.
mistake.
I'm literally just simply going through the topics. That's all.
I'm trying to think. I don't really know. I don't know. I thought maybe you had something that you were thinking about that you want me to share. I don't know.
Well, I'll have to have this commercial break real quick. Hey,
Okay.
those of you guys who are brand new to hearing about the R.A.R.E leaders, we're a community that's designed to go ahead and connect people with one another to collaborate and contribute, because we believe that, one, you don't have to be on an island to go ahead and move forward. And there's a lot of people that have great perspectives, a lot of ideas that can help us move forward. So this is a safe community in which order to do that. As well, we want to provide the tools and the resources so that way you can live your best life, not just professionally, also personal life. I'm also in your community. So commercial break done.
Do you have a hint for the next answer?
I don't. I was just thinking randomly. I wasn't literally thinking of anything particular for you in terms like a time you like, because this is a self-awareness thing to say, you know what? Hey, I was actually wrong in that situation. I was inaccurate.
Well, there is one instance that I can kind of think of is that for Christmas, since it's Christmas time, we were looking at buying Ezekiel some Christmas shoes, and at this time he's already opened them. But I went ahead and I bought him a pair of the shoes, and you were not very like genuinely excited that we got them that day. And I made the mistake there of not being clear or asking you, like, hey, should I buy these at this time? Or is there something else that you had in mind for it? Because Magician Tony came up with the actual real like shoes that he wanted, not the ones that he was willing to settle with. So that was something I guess I can admit to not checking with you first on.
Well, I mean, truth be told, with that situation, it's one of those things where the mistake is us simply not sitting down and talking about, okay, look, making plans for the Christmas side of things, right? And if we would have done that, neither of us would have those situations, or we could have collaborated on ideas of how to make those shoes happen. So that's another way of becoming more self-aware. I think the other one is being aware of others. Great leaders use the same tools of self-awareness to cultivate an understanding of the people they work with, personally and professionally. And a lot of times I think it's like meeting people where they're at versus expecting them to meet us where we're at. Now that's a dance, isn't it though?
Yeah. Just like, I have certain goals of things that I want to hit, but I know other people are starting at a different spot at those goals and that they may have. So um we're working in a sense towards the same thing, but we're starting at different spots, and like understanding like I've maybe been doing so much work prior to finding out what this other person's goals were. And so just like instead of me encouraging them from the where they're starting, expecting them to already be at my level and like ready to go.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think that's where we got to make sure to check for understanding in terms of when we are becoming more self-aware and being aware of others. Because I think it's easy to assume that people know what we know. Vice versa, that can happen in both ways. It's like when I coach sports, I sometimes expect my players to already have known XYZ way to run a play or what a certain set is in volleyball. And then I have to take a step back and realize like not everyone has the same starting point. So in regards to being aware of others, check for understanding. And sometimes find out how they understand it before you say something, because sometimes that what they share will actually be a better idea than what you are going to present. And here's another big one in terms of self-awareness, improving self-awareness, is don't play small. In playing racquetball, I remember, when I was first starting out, I wanted to play with people that were at quote unquote my level. And I remember being told by one of the players, and he said, like, Tony, if you continue to play in the small pond, you won't be prepared for the big pond. It's great that you're winning now, but you got to go ahead and get spanked a little bit. Eat some humble pie if you want to improve. So one, why do you think people play small and surround themselves with people that don't cause them to step up?
I think sometimes when you're comfortable with where you're at, you may be at a higher level than those that are around you, and maybe those that are around you are looking to play in that bigger pond by having you around, but then you need to continue to grow yourself and expand out of your comfort zone, because yeah, it's cool to be the cool guy and the person that's the greatest in the other place, um, for an ego boost, if that's what you're really looking for. But are you looking for an ego boost, or are you looking to get better for yourself just in general to continue to grow? And I think that's a question that you need to ask yourself, like, is what I'm doing to make me look good to other people, or is what I'm doing making me happy with who I am?
And that goes with the saying that I heard last week: do it for the cause versus doing it for the applause. And there's no doubt that there is comfort about being around people that make you feel comfortable. And there's no doubt there's confidence in the known. And what I've learned is that if I really want to experience life, I got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And it's no different when I hired my very first coach. I was incredibly uncomfortable to do it, especially the amount that I invested with my first coach. Like, my mind was going, I've read hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of books, spent thousands of hours in personal growth and development. And now I'm going to pay someone to be a coach for me. Yet you hear the phrase like, who's Michael Jordan's coach? Who's Wayne Gretzky's coach? Like, everyone who's successful has a coach. And it's not that the coach can beat them in whatever they're doing. The coach can go ahead and challenge their thinking and ask questions that cause them to think. And all of our progress, truth be told, it was preceded by a question. And, when I went back to that, when I hired that coach many years ago, as much as uncomfortable it was, by becoming more self-aware of myself, I was able to lead my team to double growth. And not only that, relationships improved and stress was reduced. So here's what we covered: feedback from others, doing reflection on your days, asking people to give you that feedback. So, I'm doing 360 right now in terms of how I am, in terms of my self-awareness, and there's blind spots I have. Can you give me some feedback? And mind you, whatever feedback they give you, it is a gift. Don't bite their head off. You ask, especially if you want to grow. And there's different levels of awareness. There is denial, blame, there's actions, there's thoughts, beliefs, there's values and principles, there's personal identity, there's higher self and atonement. Self-awareness takes work. It doesn't happen overnight. And we have to get into that zone, the unknown zone, in order to become more self-aware. But that's where emotional intelligence comes into play. So, Danielle, what would you say are some final thoughts on why self-awareness is so important, especially as a R.A.R.E leader?
Well, I think as we talked a little bit last week about pause, breathe, and appreciate, I think going into this next week here, we're kind of taking that pause and we're taking a break and kind of away from everything to really reflect on this past year. We've done our one word and we're getting ready to take on 2022. And so we have that time to reflect. And I think a big part of that reflection is being self-aware and really taking a look with a microscope and a magnifying glass and looking at the last year here. Where did I grow? What was I doing to help that growth? When that growth stopped, what happened? What happened? What did I trip over? What were some of my stumbling blocks? And really looking to talk to one another like your connection team, or like having that, like our family together, and really just kind of having that feedback like, hey, this was going well, that this time, like having that conversation with each other and finding out what are some of those areas where things were going well, what did you notice, and where can I grow in that area, or this started to happen, and just being able to have those conversations and taking this time over the next week now to take that pause, find what refills your soul, and being able to take that and into the next year and getting your goals set.
Yeah. I mean, that's well said. It's jumping into that safe zone, gloves at the door, opening up, because at the end of the day, we do want to grow as human beings. And I've said this in past calls, we're the only living creature on this planet that will limit our own growth. That's it. We're the only ones. So as you all head into next year, take some time out, like Danielle said, to pause and breathe and reflect. And if you want the R.A.R.E leader reflection and planner for this, just simply send a comment, put a comment in today's comments, or send us a message. We'd be glad to go ahead and share that with you as well. So we appreciate you all. Have a fantastic Christmas. I'm nice, sometimes naughty. Until next time, I'm Tony Jalen with Danielle Jalen. Be a R.A.R.E leader, rise up, onward and upwards.